Welcome back to part 2 of a hard journey back. Oh, there's some crows out there, a whole bunch of them. Oh, sorry about that, a whole bunch of crows. Okay, so what happened? Well, driving back across Iran, and it's nighttime, and the idiot who's driving the van just knocked a lamppost over, and here come the police. Mary was sobbing, and Jake started talking loudly, pointing at the kids now standing off to one side with the men. The police spoke a little English and were obviously not happy with Jake's diatribe. They told him in no uncertain terms to shut up. "Be quiet, Jake," I whispered to him as the police inspected his paperwork and our passports. "Don't antagonize these blokes. They got guns, and you're pissing them off." He simmered down, and Mary just sniffled. He was obnoxious, and she was a weak little thing. I felt resigned and said nothing. One of the police asked us some questions, and I let Jake answer. Where were we coming from? Where were we going to? Why had we chased the kids? Did we have any drugs? The last question scared me, but we knew we didn't have any, as we had gone through the border a few hours earlier. I expected Jake would have to pay some baksheesh, which is a bribe, and we'd be allowed to leave, but that wasn't going to happen. "Come with us in this car," we were ordered. Jake had a whole bunch of valuable artwork under the mattress in the back of the van, and all I had was my backpack, so I wasn't worried about having things stolen if we had to leave the van there all night. "No," said Jake angrily. "I'm an American citizen and I want to talk to the nearest embassy." "Hey man, shut the hell up," I whispered to him. "Don't go demanding anything of these guys. Be nice, do what they say. We could be in deep trouble here." I decided to try and placate everyone. "Sir," I said respectfully to the officer in charge. Is possible to bring van?" I said, pointing at the van and making a driving motion with my hands. I pointed to the other cop and got them to understand that Mary and I would go in the police car and Jake would drive the van with the cop next to him. They talked for a few seconds and agreed. "Okay, Jake, let's look under the hood and see if we can pry the radiator away from the van," I suggested, "and let's do it quick before they change their minds." I seemed to have taken control of the situation, and Jake let me. "I don't know anything about engines," he whined. I popped the hood and the officer shone his flashlight in. It wasn't too bad. I climbed on the mangled bumper and pulled the radiator forward enough so the fan could spin without hitting it. We filled the radiator with drinking water from our canteens, and I hoped it would keep the engine cool until the hole in the radiator could be fixed. Jake got in, with a cop sitting next to him, watching him intently. He started the engine and backed away from the lamppost, which rocked alarmingly and then fell onto the ground, breaking the glass and the large bulb. Mary and I got into the police car. She was crying quietly. "Where are we going, John? What will they do to us?" she moaned. "I don't know, Mary. Just relax. Pull yourself together. It'll be fine," I said reassuringly. But I wasn't too sure that it would be fine. This wasn't Tehran with a full-blown American embassy. We were in a small town, had just damaged their property, obviously had money as we were in a relatively new van, and we didn't know a soul here. We were pretty much at the mercy of the local cops. With the blue lights flashing, we pulled away, with the one headlight still working on the van after the crash, feebly following behind us. We drove slowly for about 5 minutes, then pulled into the back of a building. I had tried to talk with the officer driving the car, and he was quite receptive, eager to practice his English. I had decided early on during this amazing adventure through these foreign lands to treat all authority figures with respect, as I was a visitor in their countries, and often their culture and customs were different. This had always stood me in good stead, and it did the same here. Officer Madani escorted us into the back room of the police station with Jake and his cop following. There was another older man in an ill-fitting, rumpled suit sitting in an adjacent office smoking a cigarette. When he came in, the other two were quite deferential. He told us in fairly good English to please sit down. "I am Inspector Salari, and you will please tell me what has occurred tonight." Jake started to tell him what had happened, then got a bit loud when he got to the part about chasing the kids in the van. I kept quiet. Mary started sobbing again. Jake seemed to feel his accident was a fault of the kids, who were just being kids. He threatened to call the American embassy. In fact, he demanded that Inspector Solari do that, and do it now. This did not settle well with the policeman, who didn't take kindly to being yelled at by a bearded young American in his police station. I was getting really fed up with this moron and stood up to try and calm things down. Diplomacy was not his strong point. "Jake, shut up, man. You're pissing off the cops and they've got the guns. You chase the kids and you knock down the bloody lamppost. Stop demanding and listen to what they want and how we can get out of this mess." "Inspector," I said politely, "how can we fix this unfortunate situation so everyone is satisfied?" "Yes, that is a good question. We will discover tomorrow how much it will cost to fix the broken lamppost and what fine we shall impose upon the owner of the vehicle. Now, it is late, your vehicle is safe here, and you must all spend the night in our jail. It is not the most comfortable, but I cannot let you go until this situation is finished." Mary was sobbing again. Jake started to protest. "Be quiet, man," I hissed at him. "Can we get our blankets and pillows from the van, sir?" I asked the inspector respectfully. "Oh, yes, of course, not a problem. You are not criminals. This was a foolish mistake, and that is all." We were escorted outside back to the van and were allowed to get what we needed to make it through the night. Back inside, they locked our passports and car registration in their old safe, and we were led downstairs to the cells. Mary was visibly shaking. I think it was fear, rather than from the cold. Jake was doing little to comfort her. I was trying to remain calm. I'd never been in jail before, beside this one night, had never been again. The jail smelled of urine and sweat and fear. Luckily, the 3 cells were empty that night, so we didn't have to share with any desperate Iranian criminals, which was my main concern. An iron door, all bars and rust, was opened, and Jake and I were gently pushed in. The door slammed closed and a key was turned in the lock. It was not a good feeling. Mary was taken to the next cell and shut in for the night. Jake went over to talk to her through the bars. There were 2 iron beds with thin mattresses on them. I pulled a mattress off one of them and noticed several large dark stains. I gulped. It looked like caked blood. I pulled out my sleeping bag and laid it in the bed frame and blew up my small inflatable blue pillow. Climbing in, I lay there with my hands behind my head and took stock of my situation. I'm in jail with an egotistical twit who couldn't control his temper. In Iran, a country that doesn't really like Jews. No one knowing where I was. I'm weak and sick, still weigh around 120 pounds, and can't eat very much without throwing up. I have less than $100 in my pocket, and I'm in jail in Iran. I just went to sleep totally exhausted. The next morning we were each taken to a small room with a cracked sink, cold water, and the Asian equivalent of a toilet, a hole in the floor. Back in our cells, they kindly brought us rich, strong coffee, some eggs and bread. I hoped it wasn't to be my last meal. Around midday, Inspector Solari had us brought up to his office. He asked if we had rested well, and then became very official. With a policeman carefully taking notes, he read out the charges against us, which were that we had purposefully chased several young children after they had thrown stones at the van, that we had completely damaged and destroyed public property, in this instance a city lamppost, that we were observed attempting to leave the scene of the accident. The owner of the vehicle, a United States citizen, was hereby ordered to pay the sum of 2,000 rials to replace the damage to city property and 500 rials in fines. I breathed a sigh of relief. That was only around $300, and I knew Jake had that on him. The idiot started to protest and demanded that he be allowed to talk to the American embassy. "Listen, you bloody fool," I whispered to him. "You're in jail in a little town in Iran, and you're totally responsible for the damage. What do you think the embassy will do? Tell these guys to bugger off and let us go? Smile, thank him, pay him the $300, let's get the van fixed, and get the hell out of here, man." He grumbled something, then told the inspector that he would pay the fine. Could we have our passports and paperwork back, please? We were out of there in an hour, after shaking hands all around with the inspector and his staff. We threw our stuff in the van and followed Officer Madani to his cousin's garage. There the radiator was taken out and welded, the bumper was straightened, one headlight replaced, and we were ready to go. Jake paid the mechanic. We shook hands with Officer Madani, and in the late afternoon drove out of Mashhad, heading west on Highway 44 towards Tehran, 550 miles away. A frosty silence permeated the van. There would be more adventures before we reached Istanbul, more tales to tell. So next week, I'm going to continue this tale as Jake and Mary and I, in the blue van, go across Iran and into Turkey and have amazingly dangerous adventure in a blizzard on a narrow mountain pass in the mountains of Turkey. So I hope you enjoyed this. Please feel free to share it with your friends. Hopefully it will take you away from the madness for another at least half hour anyway. And I hope you enjoy my tales. So this is Captain John signing off.